Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a figure who embodies, well, maybe the ultimate historical contradiction, Cyrus the Great.
Absolutely. We're talking about the founder of the Achaemenid Empire, around 600 to 530 BC, the
Yeah.
biggest the world had seen up to that point.
Right, huge. But he's this paradox, isn't he? A massive conqueror, yet somehow remembered as, well, almost benevolent.
That's exactly the puzzle we need to unpack. How does one person conquer three major empires, command this vast continent-spanning army, and still end up celebrated, not just by his own people, but by the Greeks, the Babylonians, even the Jews, called a liberator, a statesman?
So that's our mission today. Let's dive into the sources. How did he manage it? This blend of brute military force and this, frankly, revolutionary approach to running an empire, especially regarding religion.
Was it genuine tolerance? Or was it just incredibly shrewd statecraft? Maybe the smartest political move the ancient world had seen.
We have to start with where he came from, I suppose. His core identity, as you said, founder of the Achaemenid Empire, West Asia, Central Asia.
All the way from the Lydian frontier, modern Turkey, across to the Indus Valley. I mean, think about the sheer diversity in that territory. Countless peoples, languages, religions.
Managing that had to be his unique genius.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so dynastic roots first. Son of Cambyses I, king of Anshan, and his line goes back, grandfather Cyrus I, great-grandfather Tispes. That's the lineage.
That's the, let's say, official version.
Right.
The one later Achaemenid rulers, especially Darius the Great, really wanted to solidify. It anchors Cyrus firmly in that specific royal line.
But there's another angle.
There is. Some scholarship, looking at the earlier context, suggests his family might have been more Tispid and Elamite or Anshanite, linked to the region of Anshan rather than purely Achaemenid in the way Darius later defined it.
Does that distinction really matter that much? I mean, he founded the empire, conquered everyone. Who cares about the exact label of his tribe?
Well, it matters for legitimacy, especially later on. The fact that there's even a discussion suggests that rulers like Darius, who, let's not forget, took power after Cyrus's son, in somewhat contested circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
He needed to hammer home that Achaemenid connection to strengthen their own claim. For us, the key point is he was a powerful local king who exploded onto the scene and built an empire incredibly fast.
Right. Let's talk about that speed. His military career is just staggering. It kicks off with overthrowing the Median Empire, his own grandfather, a statesman.
Yes, his maternal grandfather. There was about 3 years of conflict, ending around 550 BC. And it wasn't just battles.
No.
It was smart politics, maybe even manipulation. Stagis put his top general, Harpagus, in charge of the Median army.
Okay.
Now, according to Herodotus at least, Stagis had treated Harpagus absolutely brutally years before over some slight. Harpagus hadn't forgotten.
So revenge.
Seems like it. He saw his chance, defected to Cyrus, and crucially persuaded a large chunk of the Median nobles and army to switch sides with him. The Median capital, Ecbatana, fell largely because of this internal betrayal.
Wow. So right from the start, he knew how to exploit weaknesses within the enemy leadership, find disgruntled allies.
Exactly. A pattern we see again. After Media, he pivots west. Lydia in Asia Minor. King Croesus, famous for his unbelievable wealth. This is around 546 BC.
And this leads to that famous battle, Thimbra, the one with the camel.
That's the one. It's a fantastic example of thinking outside the box militarily.
Yes.
Cyrus positions dromedary's camels right at the front of his lines, facing the Lydian cavalry.
Why camels, though? Seems bizarre. How would that beat trained cavalry?
Apparently, the Lydian horses, which were the core of Croesus's army, had never encountered camels before. The smell, the sight, it completely freaked them out.
Seriously, just the smell.
That's the story. Total panic. The cavalry, the pride of the Lydian army, just broke and fled. After that, Cyrus besieged and took Sardis, the Lydian capital.
And then he spared Croesus. Didn't execute him.
Famously, yes. He kept Croesus on as an advisor.
Okay, I have to pause here. In ancient warfare, you kill the enemy king. That's standard practice. Isn't sparing Croesus just incredibly risky, setting yourself up for a future rebellion?
It looks risky on the surface, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the sources, especially how things played out, suggest it was calculated. Very calculated.
How so?
Think about the message it sends. Executing Croesus, he becomes a martyr, fuels resistance. Sparing him, treating him with honor.
It broadcasts a different message entirely.
Precisely. Submit to Cyrus, and maybe, just maybe, your life, your status, your local customs might actually be respected. It's propaganda through action. Magnanimity as a weapon.
Huh. Clever. And that strategy, that reputation must have helped with the next big target. Babylon, the Neo-Babylonian Empire.
Absolutely. After the Battle of Opis, the sources like the Nabonidus Chronicle are pretty clear. Cyrus's general, Gubaru, walks his troops right into the city of Babylon in 539 BC. No siege, no major fight at the gates.
They just opened the gates.
Essentially, yes. The city fell without resistance, which tells you a lot about the situation inside Babylon. The reigning king, Nabonidus, was deeply unpopular.
Why?
He'd alienated the powerful priesthood of Marduk, Babylon's chief god. Nabonidus was promoting the moon god Sin, moving religious rites out of Babylon, basically offending all the traditional power structures.
So Cyrus didn't just conquer Babylon.
He was practically welcomed in by a significant faction who saw him as a better alternative, a liberator from an impious king.
Okay, so now he controls this enormous territory, Media, Lydia, Babylon, plus his original base. Conquest is one thing, but how do you govern something that vast and diverse?
He had to invent new ways of doing things. He laid the groundwork for this strong central administration, but crucially he balanced it with a degree of regional autonomy. That's the famous satrapy system.
Satrapy system. Can you break that down for us? How did it actually work on the ground? How do you give regions power without them just breaking away?
Think of it as imperial checks and balances. Each province or satrapy had a governor, the satrap, usually a local noble or even a former king responsible for civil matters, taxes.
Okay, one guy in charge locally.
But not quite. There were two other key officials in each satrapy, and all three reported back to Cyrus directly, not just through the satrap.
Oh, interesting. Who were the others?
You had a military general, responsible for troop recruitment, maintaining order, commanding local garrisons, crucially, separate from the satrap's civil authority.
Okay, military power separate from political power. And the third?
The third was a state secretary, sort of like a royal administrator or maybe even an intelligence officer, kept records, monitored the satrap, and the general reported everything back to the capital, the king's eyes and ears.
Yeah, so you split political, military, and oversight functions.
Yeah.
No single person in a province could easily consolidate enough power to challenge the center.
Exactly. It was genuinely innovative for its time, a way to manage a multi-ethnic, sprawling empire effectively.
And he backed this administrative structure with hard power too, right? The famous immortals.
Thus, his elite royal guard, 10,000 heavy infantry, supposedly always kept at that exact number. If one fell, another immediately took his place, hence the name. A formidable, loyal corps.
And the communication system, the Chaparkhane.
Another brilliant piece of infrastructure, essentially an imperial postal service. Relay stations set up along the royal roads with fresh horses and riders always ready. Messages could travel incredibly fast across the empire.
Like an ancient Pony Express.
Pretty much. This combination, the administrative structure, the elite troops, the fast communication, that's what gave the Achaemenid Empire its staying power for over 2 centuries. Cyrus wasn't just conquering, he was building the institutional skeleton.
Which brings us back full circle to that paradox. The military machine, the immortals. How does that guy become known as the Great Liberator?
It comes down to that policy of tolerance. Religious tolerance, cultural tolerance. That's what really set him apart and cemented his legacy.
The titles alone tell a story. The Greeks called him Cyrus the Elder, kind of respectfully acknowledging this different approach.
The Babylonians, as we said, relieved to be rid of Nabonidus, called him the Liberator.
But the one that always gets me is what his own people called him, the Father.
Yeah, that comes through in sources like Xenophon, this idea that he was seen as someone who gave things to his subjects rather than just taking this image of paternal care, of magnanimity. And it wasn't just sentiment, it was statecraft.
And perhaps the most powerful, most lasting example of this is the Edict of Restoration for the Jewish people.
It's a monumental moment in Jewish history, right there in the Hebrew Bible. After conquering Babylon, Cyrus issues this edict. It frees the Jewish exiles, ends the Babylonian captivity.
Allows them to go back to Jerusalem, right? Return to Zion.
Yes, and not only allows them to return, but actively facilitates the rebuilding of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Provides funds, resources. It's an act of incredible political and religious significance.
And the impact that had. I mean, in the book of Isaiah, he's called Messiah, Yahweh's anointed one.
Think about that. He is the only non-Jewish figure in the entire Hebrew Bible to receive that title. Anointed by God to carry out this specific task of liberation and restoration.
The loyalty that must have generated, that's worth more than armies, isn't it?
Absolutely. You take a people held captive, you restore their religious center, their dignity.
Yeah.
You've potentially turned former enemies or resentful subjects into incredibly loyal supporters on a critical frontier of your empire.
And we have physical proof of this policy, don't we? The Cyrus cylinder.
We do. It's a small clay cylinder, looks almost like a barrel, covered in Akkadian cuneiform script, found in the ruins of Babylon.
And what does it actually say?
It basically lays out Cyrus's version of the conquest. It denounces the previous king, Nabonidus, for his impiety. It portrays Cyrus as chosen by the Babylonian god, Marduk. And crucially, it talks about returning displaced peoples to their homelands and restoring their temples.
Which sounds very much like what happened with the Jews.
Exactly. It corroborates that general policy of repatriation and religious restoration across Mesopotamia.
Now, this cylinder has become quite famous, even controversial, in modern times. The Shah of Iran, back in the 70s, called it the first human rights charter. The UN picked up on that too. Is that fair?
It's complicated. Look, designating it as the first human rights charter was a powerful symbolic move, especially for modern Iran, connecting to this ancient legacy of tolerance. It resonated internationally. But historians, generally push back against applying the modern concept of human rights back to the 6th century BC. It's what we call anachronistic.
Meaning the idea didn't exist back then in the way we understand it now.
Precisely. It's like calling Magna Carta the Democratic Constitution. Yeah. It was a step towards certain principles, maybe, but it wasn't conceived in those terms. The Cyrus cylinder fits very comfortably within a long tradition of Mesopotamian royal inscriptions. New kings often issued decrees proclaiming their justice, piety, how they were restoring order, correcting the wrongs of the previous ruler. It was partly propaganda, partly a way to secure the loyalty of the local elites, especially the priesthoods, by respecting their traditions and gods.
So, stripping away the modern lens, the real genius wasn't necessarily humanitarianism in our sense, but recognizing that respecting local religions and traditions was the smartest way to achieve stability in a giant, diverse empire.
I think that's a fair assessment. It was incredibly pragmatic, respecting Marduk in Babylon, facilitating the temple rebuilding in Jerusalem. These weren't just nice gestures. They were strategic investments in imperial cohesion, less costly than maintaining huge occupying armies everywhere.
Brilliant statecraft, disguised as benevolence. Or perhaps genuinely both.
That's the enduring question, isn't it?
Okay, so we've seen his rise, his methods of rule, his unique legacy. But how did it all end? His death seems to be, well, another area of conflicting stories.
It really is. The end of Cyrus is as complex as his life. We have solid cuneiform evidence confirming he died around December 530 BC, and his son Cambyses II succeeded him. That much is clear.
But the how? That's where it gets murky.
Very murky. We have at least 3 dramatically different accounts from later Greek historians. It forces you to think about historical bias, storytelling, maybe even propaganda after his death.
Let's take the most famous, most dramatic one first, Herodotus' version. This involves a campaign way out east against the Massachei, these nomadic warriors.
Right, led by their queen, Tomyris, a formidable opponent.
And Herodotus tells this incredibly vivid, almost movie-like story.
He does. Cyrus tries a trick. He sets up a camp deliberately lightly defended, but stocked with tons of wine, something the Massachei weren't used to.
He baits them.
Exactly. A contingent of the Massachei, led by Tomyris' son, attacks the camp, finds the wine, drinks themselves into a stupor. Cyrus then circles back, attacks the drunken soldiers, and captures Tomyris' son.
And the son.
Once he sobers up and realizes the shame of his capture, he kills himself. Tomyris is, understandably, absolutely enraged, both by the trickery and the loss of her son.
She vows revenge.
Bloody revenge. According to Herodotus, she gathers her full forces, engages Cyrus in what he calls the fiercest battle of Cyrus's entire career, and she wins.
Cyrus is killed in battle.
Yes. And Tomyris, fulfilling her vow, finds his body on the battlefield, has his head cut off, and dips it into his skin filled with human blood.
And she says something like,
"I warned you I would quench your thirst for blood, and so I shall." Or words to that effect. Sate yourself on blood. It's brutal, unforgettable imagery.
wow, a dramatic, maybe cautionary tale about overreach?
Perhaps. Or maybe just a great story Herodotus heard. But it's not the only one. We have another version from Ctesias, another Greek historian.
What does Ctesias?
Much less dramatic. Ctesias claims Cyrus died fighting the Dervises, another group, possibly near India. Apparently, they were helped by Indian allies who brought war elephants, which wounded Cyrus fatally.
So just killed in action, suppressing a revolt on the frontier. A much more mundane end for a great conqueror.
Exactly. Seems plausible, if less spectacular.
And then there's a third version.
Yes, from Xenophon. In his work, the Cyropedia, which is more of a philosophical treatise on ideal leadership using Cyrus as a model than strict history.
Right, almost like a novel.
Kind of. In Xenophon's version, Cyrus dies peacefully, of old age, surrounded by his family and officials in his capital city, Pasargadae, giving wise final instructions.
The perfectly noble end for the perfectly virtuous ruler Xenophon wanted to portray.
Precisely. It fits Xenophon's philosophical agenda. Highly unlikely to be historically accurate in detail, but it tells you how some people wanted to remember Cyrus.
So, 3 completely different deaths. Gruesome revenge, killed in a minor border war, or peaceful passing in his bed.
Take your pick. But regardless of how he died, we know where he was buried.
His tomb still exists, right? In Pasargadae, Iran.
Yes, a relatively simple but elegant stone structure. It's now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a very powerful, understated monument.
And there's that famous epitaph associated with it, recorded by later writers like Plutarch.
Oh man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, for I know you will come, I am Cyrus who won the Persians their empire. Do not therefore grudge me this little earth that covers my body.
That humility, real or attributed, is striking, considering his achievements.
It certainly struck later conquerors. Alexander the Great is a key example.
Alexander admired Cyrus
Immensely. He had read Xenophon's Cyropaedia and saw Cyrus as a role model ruler. When Alexander reached Pasargadae centuries later and found Cyrus's tomb had been broken into and looted,
He wasn't happy.
he was reportedly horrified. He interrogated the magi responsible for guarding it, ordered the tomb meticulously restored, and sealed it again. Huge sign of respect.
So summing up Cyrus, his impact was just enormous. One historian, Charles Freeman, argues his achievement ranks far above Alexander's.
That's a big claim, but Freeman's point is about longevity. Alexander conquered vast territories, but his empire fragmented almost immediately after his death. Cyrus built the structures, the satrapies, the roads, the administration, the policy of tolerance that allowed the Achaemenid Empire to endure for 2 centuries. That's a different kind of achievement.
And that model of governance, that idea of enlightened rule, it didn't just influence Alexander, it reached across the ages, didn't it? Right into the Enlightenment.
Remarkably, yes. There's a fascinating connection to the founding of the United States.
How so?
Thomas Jefferson, one of the key figures behind the Declaration of Independence. We know from his library records that he owned not 1, but 2 copies of Xenophon's Cyropaedia.
Wow. So the American founders weren't just looking at Greek democracy or Roman republics, they were studying Cyrus.
They were studying Xenophon's idealized portrait of Cyrus, yes. A model of a ruler who governed a vast, diverse territory, not just through force, but through persuasion, respect for local customs, a degree of decentralization, aspects that arguably influenced their thinking about building a new kind of state.
Incredible. So if we circle back to our main theme, Cyrus built this unprecedented empire, yet his defining legacy, paradoxically, is tolerance.
It really is.
It makes you think, doesn't it? How did that specific policy, religious freedom for the Babylonians, the Jews, presumably others, how did it work not just as, a nice idea, but as a core strategy, a tool to build real, lasting loyalty and stability across such incredibly diverse lands?
What does this success tell us about the relationship between power, hard power, and maybe the softer power of persuasion, of respect, in actually running things effectively, especially on a grand scale?
It suggests that maybe the most effective form of control isn't always coercion. Sometimes maybe it's co-option, respect, magnanimity as policy.
A lesson perhaps still relevant today: how do you govern diversity successfully? Cyrus offers one very ancient but surprisingly compelling answer.
A lot to think about there. Thanks for this deep dive.
My pleasure. He's a endlessly fascinating figure.